array of strengths, which is what I originally thought it was. But a much, much better meaning is to use it a verbal noun, the marshalling, the pulling together of all your strengths. So in other words, you have within you various strengths. These are, so to speak, the troops available to you, the forces available to you. So the bala vyuha, when you're making this effort, is the bala, marshalling all your strength. Where are your strong points? Marshalling those together. That, I think, is a much truer meaning. And that actually is also the meaning that is given in the Padmakara translation group version of the way of the Bodhisattva, which is from Tibetan, but from the Sanskrit translation into Tibetan. So just remember now, not just an array of different strengths, but marshalling, arraying them as a verbal noun. So let's get back to now. So can you all see my shared screen now? With the golly good, thank you. So there we are. So in verse 16, we are told to do all of these various things. Verse 16 is just a list of nouns. All of these things are to be done. Now on to verse 17, Naivavashada. Right, so I'll read this first now. Naivavashada kartavya kutume bodhir ityatah yasmat tathagata satyam satyavadida muktavan. I'll just read again. Naivavasada kartavya kutume bodhir ityatah yasmat tathagata satyam satyavadida muktavan. So everything in verse 16, but na eva avasada. So by santi, na eva avasada becomes naiva avasada. So all of those things, yes, but na eva. The eva has a force here. It means, but certainly not. All of those things, yes, but definitely not avasada. Naiva avasada kartavya. Kartavya meaning to be done. Ought to be done, is to be done. So all of these things do naeva, but not avasada. Despair is to be done. Avasada, you could make defeatism as well. Despair or despondency is more vishada. You know, at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, you have the Arjuna Vishada, the despair of Arjuna. Avasada is more just abandoning the fight, sitting away, sitting out. I see a raised hand from Mariano. From a still mute.
Okay,
there we are.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, you actually invited us to come up with a different use for atah.
Atah.
Yeah, it seems to me that one possible usage, if you consider 16 and 17 all together, atah is saying hence, after saying in 15, how can you abandon, blah, 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 hence, apply yourself for doing this and that and the other, and not become despondent because you think that. How about that?
So let me just say, hence from this place, from this starting point.
Yeah. So if you put together 16 and 17, and atah is a conjunction with the 15, it is disjunction with 15. In 15, it is saying, how can you do blah, 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 blah. Hence, apply yourself into this and that and the other, and not become despondent because you think blah, blah, blah.
I would tend to say that's certainly a very good line of inquiry. So if you're taking, so let me just highlight it here. So this word atah, you're taking as referring back to everything in verses 15 and 16.
Yeah, it is, it following on from
Sorry,
15.
from 16. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it could do that, because everything in 16. Remember, this is a list of things. In verse 16, it's just a bare list. When you get to verse 17, you're told, right, all of that is a list of things that is kartavya, to be done. So all these things to be done, naiva vasada, kutumi bodhirata. Bodhirityata. Yeah, it's an interesting line of inquiry. I need to think about that a little more, so we can come back to it. Thank you, Annie, for that line of inquiry. The word atah itself, hence, it's let me just a little bit of grammar for a moment, and let me bring on my. Have I lost my? Things are turning themselves off. Here we are. There we are. Here we are. This ending, sorry, ta. It's a kind of adverbial ablative. And in case you're a little bit puzzled, anyone, about exactly what I mean by an adverbial ablative, I am slightly, but don't worry. In Old Vedic, the usual ablative ending is art for the nouns. There's an alternative in Vedic is in ta. When it came into Sanskrit and also into Pali, and Pali it is to, it's not a pure ablative. It just means from a particular place or with regard to. So, for example, in some of the Pali suttas on sati, on mindfulness, you contemplate the body as a body. Kayam kayato samanupassati. In other words, just as pure body. So that kind of ablative form, you contemplate the body kayata, as pure body, not my body. I must protect my body. I'm afraid of my body. I want to be nice to my body. Just pure body. So, the other very common meaning is this ablative meaning from ta, from here, ta, thence, from there, from that. Kuta, we've had kuta equals whence. So atta, hence, tata, thence, kuta, whence. This kuta, often used as a rhetorical question. How can you possibly say such a thing? In Sanskrit, also in Pali, kuto, you could say kuta, whence, from where could you say such a thing? So I think I mentioned it earlier. You've got the same kind of idiom in, I mentioned this last time, in Chinese. How could you say such a thing? Is, I don't know if I'll pronounce it very well, nar de hua, from whence comes the speech, nar de hua. So, so thank you for your input there on the possible meaning of atta. I'll research it further, Mariano.
Thank you.
All right. So, Naivavasada Kartavya. Kartavya, a pure masculine singular. Some of you might be wondering, we have an entire list of nouns in the previous verse and just one noun here. But the kartavya refers to all of them. Why then in the masculine singular? It could have been put in the plural, but it is correct. If you have a list of nouns, then followed by then a new subphrase, na eva avasada. It's all right to put the kartavya just to agree with the last mentioned noun. And the rules are fairly complex, but just say you can have the adjective agreeing with the last mentioned noun, provided the last mentioned noun is not itself part of the compound. I'm seeing despairing faces. Sorry, it's my fault. The last member, this is not part of a compound. This is now a separate word as a masculine singular. So you're allowed to have the kartavya in the masculine singular, even though it refers to all of the previous nouns. So all of the things in verse 16, but definitely not avasada, beginning of verse 7, are to be done. Kuto me bodhirityata. Oh, here's the very kuto I was just talking about. Whence? Kuto me bodhir. From whence? How? Kuto me bodhir. How to me enlightenment? How could I possibly achieve bodhi? Kuto me bodhi. And the iti, iti literally thus. Often it is an end quote. He said so and so, iti means end quote. But also, and bear this well in mind, I'm sure you bear in mind well everything I'm saying, hopefully you do. But it often means is a mental explanation. I was afraid I might get a parking ticket if I left my ticket to run overdue, so I rushed back to the car park. You don't. If you're putting that in Sanskrit, you wouldn't have to use afraid. I might get a parking ticket. Iti. I rushed back to the car park. So it's like an explanation of the mental processes. So there must not be any defeatism arising from the idea, how could I possibly be enlightened or get enlightened? So the iti refers back to the avasada that you might fall into. So avasada, naivasada kartavya kutume bodhir iti. You must not fall into this defeatism, thinking, wrongly believing as to iti, how could I possibly get bodhi? As for the meaning of atta, as I said, we will come back to this after this spanner in the work. No, this very helpful suggestion made by Mariano. Yismat. It's the ablative literally from which, it just means because. Yismat tathagata. Because the tathagata, the thus gone, the tathagata, satyam satyavadidam uktavan. We could parse that into the tathagata, the satyavadi, the tathagata, the satyavadi, the truth speaker. Satyam uktavan has spoken the truth, has spoken this truth. This uktavan, very commonly used in classical Sanskrit, not in Vedic. In classical Sanskrit, rather than using just the finite form of the verb, it's very common to use the active past participles. The uktavan, one who has said. It just means it can be used instead of a verb. Just a little bit of grammar here, because it's quite, this particular word is very common. You'll see it again and again. Oops. Is the root vach, meaning to say or to speak. As we know, it's cognate with the Latin vox, voice, la voce, la voz in Spanish, English vocals, all from that same root. So I would look very carefully at Mariano's face whenever I say anything in Italian. I look carefully at Orca's face whenever I say anything in Chinese. Okay. So vach. To make a past participle out of it, as normal, we know that we add a ta onto something. So this would, you might think, make, put an asterisk there to show the word, doesn't it? You say vachta. It doesn't quite work like that. Firstly, you can't have a ch before a t, so it becomes a kta. So you'd expect to see something like vakta. However, in Vedic, this was a stressed syllable, not long, just stressed, vakta. And that had the effect of softening an unstressed va into an u. That's why it becomes ukta. So vachta, vakta, ukta, just from the softening of the va to u. So ukta means something that is said. To make this past participle, all you do now is to add the van onto the passive participle, add van, and it becomes the passive participle. So uktavan has said. And then it declines like the consonant declension. Because uktavan, uktavantam, uktavata, and so on. So back to where we were. Tathagata satyam satyavadidam uktavan. The sentence has got slightly, the word order is slightly altered it here from what would have been normal. It moves to Tathagata, the Tathagata, uktavan has said, idam, this satyam. Sorry. Satyavadi, truth saying, goes with Tathagata. The Tathagata, speaker of the truth, spoke this truth. The Tathagata, Satyavadi, idam saktam uktavan. Put in the English word, Tathagata, Satyavadi, uktavan, idam satyam. Tathagata, the truth speaker, spoke this truth. Oh, I've explained all the perfect active participle here. By the way, when you see these references in the notes to MacDonnell and people, MacDonnell, hopefully you've all found him by now on the internet. It's the most phenomenal, it's only a very small book. My copy, which I got in 1965, is beginning to get a bit frayed. It's the most phenomenal little book. It summarizes basically the whole of Sanskrit grammar, almost everything you'll ever need to know in a short book. And so even in the Pali classes, you'll see I refer in my Pali notes a lot back to MacDonnell, because my adage that to have a full understanding of Pali, you need Sanskrit. But the link to this book is on the resources sheet that you should all have. Please get used to reading or to using MacDonnell. He'll make life a lot easier. There are other grammars around that are a lot more complex, but this is really brilliant. It's a masterpiece. I still rely on it quite heavily. So MacDonnell, say his name with reverence and find him on the internet. The link is there. So I'll read this bit just once more, and then we'll go on to verse 18. Naivavastada kartavya kutume bodhirityatah yasmat tathagata satyam satyavadidamuktavan. Now, verse 18. By the way, in case any of you are worried about 18 is as far as we go on what I've already posted in YouTube, the next is almost ready to go, and it should be up within a couple of days. Up on the Christine.
I tried to track down 17 and 18, those sheets, to print them off for myself, and I couldn't find them. Now, I'm not a dazzling user of all of this, but I managed to copy off up to 16, but I haven't tracked down the 17, 18 bit.
I'm just going to, do you know, sometimes in life...
I know they should be in the study resources, and I'm just probably looking at the wrong bit.
No, sometimes it happens in life. You get this horrible cold feeling, oh my God, have I forgotten to do something? And I think this is, okay, Janet, you haven't, you have got it.
I received it. It was sent out, I believe.
Oh, hang on. So you have received it. When did you receive it, Janet?
I'm just checking. I'm trying to check my files to see, and it might even be. Because I have your Pali class too, so I just want to get the right folder to see if I.
So let me just.
No. Did you include it with the Pali ones?
The Pali ones should all be at home. Let me just go to my. What am I trying to do?
It is in your location. I downloaded it myself. I got it on the screen. So the latest version has got it.
And I'm just looking, Bodhicharyavatara, chapter 7. It is there, Bodhicharyavatara, chapter 7. If you go to this is the page from my Google Drive.
Right.
Christine, you see Bodhicharya chapters verses into 18.
Well, I've managed up till now, so I just have to, go searching a little bit more, I think.
You gave me a bad moment then, Christine. It's there.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm proving it now in front of you.
Yes.
There it is. This is
yes, surely I'll manage to track it down. But I've gone from the sheets that you attached to the emails rather than going to the website. And that may be my problem.
Okay, so if I have posted something to the Google Drive, I don't necessarily always, in fact, I would normally not send it separately. So I've been relying on people going to the Google Drive. So if you go to the Google Drive, which to my enormous relief, I've just now satisfied myself that it genuinely is there.
Yes. I'll track it down.
So it's there.
Yep. No, that's good. Right. I worried because I couldn't track it down.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Okay, then, Christine. Thank you.
I will do.
Now, let's look at verse 18.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yes, please. Who's that speaking? Bhante.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes. If possible, could you please explain the Sunday? 그토메 보디를 이때 왔다. 그토메 보디 보디리
Yes, of course I can.
Yes. Thank you.
So this this pada, this quarter verse that I've highlighted there, is that what you wanted assistance with?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, let's do it word by word. Get back to my iPad screen. Okay, so in its raw form, we'll do it word by word. In its raw form, it is kuta. And as you'll, kuta followed by a voiced consonant, kuta me becomes kuto me. And that's very standard sandhi from final a, voiced consonant me. Okay, is that clear enough so far, Bhante?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's very nice. Yes.
Next one. Bodhi. Okay, let's do this as one group. Kutume bodhi. Iti ata. Right. Where a word ends in...
You're writing.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Thank you. So kutame kutume. So bodhi iti ata. Where a word ends in a short or a long e, or short or long u, I shall write it like that, meaning short or long. Where the following word begins with a vowel or a voiced consonant, the h changes to a r. So bodhi iti becomes bodhiriti. Bodhiriti. That's some standard sandhi. So if it was bodha iti, it would become bodha iti. But bodhi iti becomes bodhiriti. And you'll find that dealt with in you will find that in paragraph 43 of MacDonnell. In fact, so keen am I to ensure that you have all got this that I'm actually going to call it up and do it in front of you. If I can find the room. Here we are. This is online grammars and dictionaries, page 19, if you go down there. This is the study resources sheet that you will have. Okay. So here we are under section Sanskrit and Pali grammar. External resources, MacDonnell Sanskrit Grammar for Students. This is the wonderful little book I've just been waving at you here. It's been my companion for more than half a century. Just follow this link. And up it comes. And you can either do it chapter by chapter, or you can do it section by section. You see, with gratitude to Odin, thank you for this wonderful new system. I think large what's on the screen. Number 43, final visarga. Click 43, up it comes. Oh, sorry, it's in 44. Visarga is what would in the final subdotted H, except when preceded by or followed by a soft letter, consonant or vowel is changed to R. Sometimes when they did the sum, it's a little bit blurred. So kavih ayam, kavih poet, ayam this, kavir ayam this poet. Go gachati becomes gaur gachati. So there we are. It's all in MacDonnell. Hopefully, and so please actually get used to the book. Learn to find your way around. It will be the most brilliant companion. And I can vouch for it being a brilliant companion because it still is my brilliant companion more than half a century after I started using it. So there we are.
Jen, sorry, it's Chris Allen. Can I just ask?
Please.
When I did a Sanskrit course many years ago, we were introduced in regard to the rules of Santi to the Laghu Siddhanti Kamadin. It's a set of sutras, I think, which effectively laws which are given in sutras to explain all the rules of Santi. This seems like a more... I never did get round to learning.
Chris, it rang a bell. Can you say the name of the sutrani that you did?
I can't. I've got a copy of the original document I was given, but I can't remember any of the... There's a whole pile of sutras.
Yes.
Sutra for each Sanskrit,
I know the one you mean. Silly me, I can't remember it now. I have worked on it and done some work on it. However, I don't know whether there's a breach of Shantideva's injunctions to put forth enormous effort, but I did kind of wimp out, if I can use that term, and I discovered that MacDonnell was rather easier to use. So you could... MacDonnell, you can look things up, just at a glance. If I had more virya, if I had more energy, more utsaha, endeavor, yes, I might have plunged into the sutras and made myself a better person. However, MacDonnell has done such sterling work for us, even though it was now well over a century ago, that I'm afraid I do tend to resort to MacDonnell if you actually want to know what the rule is. But thanks for reminding me about that, Chris. I know the one, I have used it, but I just can't remember what the name is. It'll come back to me. Okay. So there we are. So MacDonnell, please get used to him, find your way around him. So that will explain the ich and the become ir or ur before a vowel or a soft consonant, and the iti atah, well, that's the norm. When you get a word ending in an I and followed by a vowel other than I, it just becomes a y. Iti atah becomes itiyata. Because in Sanskrit, you cannot have this I directly followed by an A. The I becomes a Y, itiyata. In Vedic, by the way, you could have two vowels next to each other like that. In classical Sanskrit, you can't. So hopefully, Bhante, this has explained everything to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, most welcome,
Bhante. That website is very brilliant.
Yeah, excellent. So hopefully there will be no more problems on this. Hang on, I'm just trying to call the text back up. Here we are. Oop. Now, back to 18. Which I shall read. I'm not asking anyone to read it, but I'm saying if anybody would like to have a go at reading it, you're very welcome to say, yes, I will have a go.
Yes, I will have a go.
So who speaks? Oh, Ashina. Yeah, please. Oh, Ashina, I haven't discovered it. Which part of India do you live in?
Pune. That's Maharashtra.
Pune, right? And
yes.
Okay, great. So let us please then hear this in a pure, authentic Indian accent. So what is your native language among the Indian languages, Ashina?
It is Marathi.
Marathi. Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. So let us hear this in a wonderful Marathi accent.
Sorry for interrupting. Sorry for interrupting. I want to ask Miss Ashina.
Yes.
I came from India.
Yes.
Can you please recite that verse number 17? Naiva sadaha kartabhyaha kutume bodhirityataha yasma tatagataha satyam satyavadidan satyavadidan uktava. The point is, usually the kartabhyaha is the, I think it's a correct pronunciation, but as long as I know, most Indian people pronounce it kartavya. Like this, uktavan also, most Indian people pronounce it uktavan. So I want to make sure of that.
Okay, Ashvina,
sure.
You're now invited to recite, well, you volunteered to recite one, and you've been invited to recite another. Before, I'll just deal with that question that was raised. Sorry, was that yourself, Brother Gao?
Not me, James. It's Bante Yushi.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I looked at the wrong thing. Right.
Sorry. Yeah.
Let's just, first of all, that point that you made, is this to be pronounced kartavya or kartavya? Right. The answer to that, I'm glad you picked that up. If this word, if the visarga, this is the rules of Sanskrit pronunciation, and modern Indians may do it slightly differently, but the rule of Sanskrit pronunciation is that if the visarga occurs at the end of a sentence or at the end of a group of words, and then there's a pause, then you get the shadow vowel. Let me just call up my screen, my iPad screen for you. Okay, there's a word ending in ah. Okay, if it's at the end of a word group, just say kartavya came at the end of a sentence, end of a verse, then it will be pronounced with a little shadow at the end of it. Aha, buddhi, and so on. And ataha. If, however, it is immediately followed by another word, then you don't get the shadow vowel. So here, on its own, or at the end of a word, this word would be pronounced kartavya. Aha, the little shadow at the end. But because it's immediately followed by kuto in the same word group, you don't get the shadow vowel. Kartavyah kuto. The hak runs straight into each other without the shadow vowel. But so whether the shadow vowel, remember, is only there if it's at the end of a word group. Right. So having dealt with that, now Ashina, over to you again. Give us some.
Yes. And besides the kartavya or kartavya or vya.
Oh, you mean
that is what I want to.
The different pronunciation of the v. Right. Okay. You're going to find that differs from place to place, even within India. For example, it's the v. Sorry, the v. For example, in Tamil Nadu, it's very distinctly a v. Ivalu, with a v sound. It varies slightly in northern India. If you pronounce a v in English, a normal English or most European language v, you get the top of the teeth, the lower lip touching the upper teeth. V. This v sound in the northern Indian languages is more like, it's called a bilabial. So the lips aren't touching the teeth. They're almost touching each other, but not quite. V. You will hear it pronounced as a v, and a w. You'll hear, and it often depends on with the native language of the Indian speaker. It's all the same sound. You will hear all three. But one particular point is certainly in Hindi, if you get this word, like in Hindi, is like a var, so v, lips almost touching but not quite. It's between a w and a v. If, however, it follows a stop, like a d, let's take the word gurdwar, then it becomes a pure word. Dwar, they don't say dvar, but dwar. And swa, not swasti, but swasti, like a very short, like a w, swasti. So now we are going to hear it from an authentic, real live modern speaker of the modern Indian language, Marathi. So over to you, Ashina, please.
Okay, thank you.
And if we can see you, even better. But if that's not possible, we'll have to.
I don't have a functioning webcam. I apologize. Otherwise, I would have.
Okay, right. Right, over to you, Ashina. Here we go.
Okay. Naivavasadah kartavyah kuto me bodhirityatah yasmat tatha gatah satyam satyavadidam uktavan. Satyavadidam uktavan.
Okay, wonderful. I did notice that you put the shadow vowel in. You said to the English. You said naiva vasadaha kartavyah kuto me bodhirityata. You put the shadow vowel there, whereas you did not put the shadow vowel after the tathagata. Yasmat tathagata satyam. You said so that may be just a characteristic of how you do it in Marathi.
No, I mean Marathi does not have visargas, so it's mainly because of the pause.
Okay, right, because there is a pause here.
Yes,
it's the pada, the half verse. Okay, fine.
Yes,
right.
But James, I'm not schooled in this, so it doesn't mean that what I'm doing is necessarily right.
Right. Okay. But it was lovely to hear anyway, an authentic Marathi accent. Do it again for us, Ashina. I'm sure I'm not alone in asking you to do it again.
This is so strange. Okay, sure. Okay, just so all of you know, I'm not trained in this, so please don't necessarily follow or repeat what I'm doing. I just enjoy reciting it, so I'm doing it. Naivavasadah kartavyah kuto me bodhirityatah yasmat tatha gatah satyam satyavadi damuktavan. That tatha gatah satyam, more than the lack of a pause, it's also that what's following it is a sir. So, the yasmat tatha gatah satyam, you pick up the sir there because of that.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that very last thing that you said.
I'm not sure how to say it, but the difference in the pronunciation of the visargas in the three places there is really because, as you said, because of what's following it.
Yes.
And whether or not
yes. Now
Ashina, you've actually mentioned now a more complex point that is actually dealt with, I think, in the next Eganus lesson that we get to. That you're absolutely right to say that. I haven't burdened you. It's not a burden. It's all enormous fun. I get turned on by linguistic complexities. Where you get the visarga, okay, written as a subdotted H, okay, H. Pronounce the word with an H at the end of it. Tathagata. But however, if the following consonant is a k or a k, in Vedic pronunciation, that visarga would take on some of the quality of the following consonant. So it'd be pronounced slightly more like a ch, almost like the Greek ch. Neva vasadach kartavya. That disappeared in classical Sanskrit, but it was certainly there in Vedic, and there could be a shadow of it, even if you hear modern Indians pronouncing it. So the visarga of the dah kartavya, it's affected by the following k. And the tathagata satyam, it could be affected by that. And in fact, although it's less usual, it is correct if the visarga is followed by an S. It's equally correct to write that as an S. And you mostly find in this circumstance it written with an H, as I've written it, but it's also correct to run the visarga into the S. And it would be pronounced yasmat tathagata satyam. And the same applies with the visarga followed by a sh. So you're right to raise that point. I'm enjoying this. You're right to raise that point, Ashina. Thank you. Oh, and also, sorry, just one moment. If there's a p following, then the visarga tends to take on a slightly puffy. So buddhi puna would be buddhi, almost a f, like almost a f sound, because the following p will affect the pronunciation of the visarga. All of these are refinements, which I certainly enjoy. Don't feel burdened by them. It's not essential knowledge for the understanding of Sanskrit. But if you like that kind of thing, well, you're welcome to wallow in it with me.
Can I say something very quickly?
Please, Mariano.
I was struck by the way the T in Satyam and Satya was said. It seems to be mine flows more readily into the ya, whereas when she said it, it was almost a 1.5 T rather than 2. But there was a kind of a little minute pause between the two.
Oh, okay. Well, Ashina, can you go back and just pronounce the word satya again?
Satya.
Satya.
Yeah. It is almost not a double, but it is. There is something there.
Almost like a 1.5 meter. That's where you're pronouncing the word, concentrating on its own. If you can now say to us the logo of the Republic of India, Satyameva Jayate, how would you pronounce that?
Satyameva Jayate. Satyameva Jayate.
Yeah, there it is. You're well noticed, Mariano. There is a slight lengthening of that T.
Yeah, there is an emphasis, yeah.
Satyameva Jayate. Yeah. So now we see you get so that you can't say which pronunciation is the absolutely right one. You get a permissible variety. A permissible variety. Within limits, it's got to be authentic. So we've just now heard a variety of pronunciation, which has added to our knowledge here. For instance, what is so special about, in Italian, what is so special about the Florentine pronunciations? Or what is so special about the Roman pronunciation? Because you have this, the most perfect Italian, isn't it meant to be lingua toscana in bocca romana, the language of Tuscany in a Roman mouth, you see. There we are.
Different language altogether.
Different language. And as for the different types of pronunciation, well, you aren't going to complain if you're if you hear a Welsh or a Scottish or an Irish priest, reciting Latin with his slight bit of Irish or Welsh or Scottish. Okay, then we're now coming back to the bit that you did volunteer for us, Ashina. So over to you.
Give me just a minute while I look at it. This is the first time I'm
That's absolutely fine.
looking at it. So just give me a minute. Te pyasan danshamashaka makshikaha krimayastatha yairutsaha vashat prapta durapa bodhiruttama.
That was lovely. Okay, now you've read it once. Now read it again in a more flowing manner.
Te pyasan danshamashaka makshikaha krimayastatha yairutsaha vashat prapta durapa bodhiruttama.
Wonderful. Good. Thank you, Ashina. So let's analyze this. Te pyasan dashamakshaka makshikaha krimayastata. Yairutsaha vashat prapta durapa bodhiruttama. Te api asan becomes by Santi te api asan te pyasan. This particular phrase you can translate directly, word for word, into English, and it will make perfect sense and be good English. They too were. Te api asan. They too, they also were. Or even they who were gnats. The te pyasan, they too were. This let me get to my.
I suppose the S there is the apostrophe, I suppose.
So do you mean the apostrophe where I'm highlighting here? You're mute, Mariano.
I suppose the S in the Devanagari is the apostrophe.
Oh, this symbol that I've highlighted, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It is called this symbol there that represents a missing a dropped a, is called in Sanskrit the avagraha. Avagraha. And an older form of the word was avagrabha. Now, what does avagrabha mean? Well, it's almost the same as English off-grab, something that is taken avagrah, off-grabbed. In other words, it's a symbol to represent that the vowel has been lost. So exactly as we use the apostrophe. So, te pyasan dangshamashaka, they too were. Let's look at a bit of grammar here. So the root as, meaning to be. Remember, don't confuse that with the separate root with the long as, meaning to sit, where, for example, we get the asanas of yoga, the sittings. This is as. We retain it in English. Third person. This is the second conjugational, class 2, where the endings are added directly to the roots. It's not asati, but asti. So he is, he, she, it is, asti. And that in Latin, that's est. Same spelling in French, but pronounced e. In Spanish, es, and just in Italian, e. So it's the same one. And our English word is, it's etymologically, in German, it's ist. But in English, the T is dropped and it's is. So our English word is is directly cognate with the Sanskrit asti and the Latin est. So just now look at how you make the imperfect third person plural of the imperfect. You might be quaking that I'm going to give you the third person plural of the imperfect. No, it's so simple. To make an imperfect, you add an a to the root and add an for the third person plural. So they were a, as, an. By ordinary sandhi becomes asan. So there we are. This is a perfectly regular formation. There are a few irregularities in various bits of the verbs in Sanskrit, but mostly not. So there's a fair amount of complexity there. It's mostly highly regular. So quite a bit of upfront learning, but once you've got it, that there you are. It will almost always help you by following its own rules. So asan, they were. Tepyasan, they too were. So where did I come on? The text, there we are. Sorry, I keep switching things. There we are. They too were. Dangshamashaka Makshika. So gadflies, gnats, flies, and worms. If you look down here, dash or dansh, it bites. In Sanskrit is danshati. Root dash. I'm giving you this for a reason, bit of fun etymology here. Dash, and you can get the inserted nasal. Sorry, thank you. Thanks for the bell. There we are. Dash, root dash, danshati. To bite. One old word for a tooth. From dash 3. Oops. Danshta. So from danshta, danshtra, the biter, and it finishes up in Latin as dens, dentist, dentis. So when we go to the dentist, we go to the man who looks after your biters. The next time you think of a dentist, remember back to the Sanskrit, danshati, danshta, the biter. Again, yet another example of how these words in ancient Sanskrit aren't just random strings. We are still using those words today in a slightly different form. Dansha. So mush. So gadflies. So gnats. Mush. So look at this word mush. It's a word meaning to hum or to buzz. Buzzers or hummers. So and dansha and also mashaka. Okay, mashaka is makshika. What does that remind you of, particularly if you're Italian? È una mosca. So the Italian word for fly is mosca. Sanskrit makshika. And we use that word in English now. Kind of gold star to say which word in English comes directly from that. A little one. What about a mosquito?
Mosquito. Oh, yes. Just gonna say.
So our word mosquito is from the Spanish mosca, is all the same as the Italian mosca, fly. But mosquito is a little fly. So our word mosquito actually means little fly in Spanish, and it's directly cognate with makshika. And the next one, krimayas. Krimayas is worms. It's the same, almost the same as the English word, except the k has become a w in English. The krima, worm. It's that same word. So there we are. We're still using in modern English. You've got three things you thought just weird names of insects and whatnot, but we're using three of those four words in modern English, with your dentist and your mosquitoes and your worms, worm. So they too were, gnats, gadfly. The dangsha is more the gadfly. It's the biting one. So dangsha, the biting was, that's the gadfly. Mashaka is just the buzzing one, the gnat. Makshika, ordinary flies. Krimayastata and worms. Yair utsahavashat prapta durapa bodhiruttama. So I'll just deal with this line briefly before we leave. Yair. Now, this comes back now to Bhantayushi's question on the Sandhi. Yair. So let me get to the Yah is the relative who. Instrumental plural by whom is yay. By whom. If the next word begins with a vowel, this h becomes r. So I said it was before, after I, also after I and au. So yay utsaha becomes yair utsaha. By whom? So by whom? Prapta. That's the past participle. Has been gained. It's very common root, this up. Let me call up the up means to gain or to acquire. I don't know if it's used in Marathi, but even in modern Hindi, there's the verb, there's the apna. So as there's apnana, it means to acquire or to gain. I've just read, it might be from a different root. Anyway, we won't go into Hindi now. So ap means to gain or to acquire. Pra-ap, and by Santi becomes prap. The prap I don't think it really adds much to the meaning. Apta, prapta, it suggests maybe a little bit of an effort going forth to get it. Not just falling into your lap, but going to get it. So if something is prapta, it just means it has been obtained. It's in the feminine form, as the past participle, regularly formed, ap plus ta, apta. So prapta. What is prapta? The thing that is the prapta is the buddhi. So buddhi, feminine noun, so you get the feminine form ending in a. Prapta bodhir uttama. So the buddhi, prapta, enlightenment, gained, meaning has been gained. Two adjectives qualify buddhi, that is durapa and uttama. Now, this is a very fine example of the alternative meaning of dur or dush. So we have, as we've just seen, ap, root, to obtain, acquire. If something is difficult to do, we know the prefix duh or dush, meaning bad, nasty. Dukkha, bad space. That's the meaning of dukkha. It can also mean difficult. So by Santi, duh becomes dur before the plus a, it becomes durapa, durap. Make it into an adjective, just put an a on the end of the root, durapa. Doesn't mean bad to obtain, it means difficult to obtain, rare, durapa. Just as kara, doing, dushkara, difficult to do.
Same in Veneto, duro da fare.
Say again?
Same in Veneto. We use it in that, duro.
Oh.
Duro da fare, yeah.
Do you know, I sometimes get the impression from you, Mariano, that if I started spouting Sanskrit in the Piazza San Marco, I would actually be understood. So much Sanskrit seems to have come into Veneto. Okay. So durapa, difficult to get. So prapta, durapa, you have this echo. The durapa is prapta. The difficult to obtain is prapta, is obtained. And the uttama is, well, it's virtually the same in English. Virtually the same. Sorry, yeah. Remember the bell. I'm writing here on me. Out, ut. Out. English out. Sanskrit ut. Ut means like up or out, or up and out. So out. Outmost. Uttama. So outmost, or then outmost has become in English, modern English, utmost. The most ut, the most out. Ne plus ultra, nothing beyond it, the uttama. So utmost and uttama, okay, they're the same word. So when I say same word, I mean etymologically the same word. So we'd better cut there because I got my Pali starting in 15 minutes. But so I've got a query from question for the end. Okay, I'll just read out your question if that's all right, Odin. It comes in my. It says, resources for sight impaired. Is there anything for reading out the Devanagari or special resources devoted to the sight impaired? I'm not offhand aware of any, but I shall see if I can find anything between now and then. I mean, between now and next time. So leave it to me. I will try. And apart from just expanding what's on your screen.
James, sorry, it's just Alan. Wouldn't a better and more accurate translation be even those people who were gadflies, gats, and so on? Because as it stands, it doesn't. I thought a human embodiment was a necessary condition.
Okay. In fact, this is something I want to. Even those were gadflies by whom the highest awakening has been won. There are two different translations of this. Well, there are many, but the one by the Crosby and Skelton one, I think gets it wrong because they're saying a gnat will win it. But what is being saying here? Yes, it does receive a human. You have to have a human embodiment, but it's not. I don't think it's saying that a gnat can do it. If you're still a gnat, I mean, for all I know, they can, but that's not the doctrine. The idea is, look, you are a human being now, but back in evolution, they got evolution right there, and we all started off historically as kind of little blobs of something in the ocean, didn't we? It's not even a complete jellyfish. A jellyfish is very advanced in comparison from this single cell. So what he's saying is, you've made it as far as being a human being. Look how far you've come from what you were. Yeah. Therefore, he's saying it's actually morally wrong to despair. Look what you've already done. You're so close to it. Even those who are Buddhas, you think, I'll never get there. But those people who are ahead of you as Buddhas, look back into the past, they started off like you as proto-jellyfish. I think that's what it's getting at. So anyway, more on this next time. So we'll just we'll restart our next with the Charyavatara session to finish off on verse 18. Good. That's it from me. Thank you very much. And I'll be seeing a few of you in a few minutes' time for the Pali. Okay. Thank you then. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Doctor.